Manchester United surprise Leon Goretzka move as midfield crisis deepens. Hey everyone, welcome back to United Daily Updates. If you're new here, you've come to the right place for honest Manchester United coverage. We don't just copy rumors from Twitter. We actually analyze what's happening, check the facts, and give you information you can trust. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because we bring you daily updates on everything Manchester United. No clickbait, no drama for clicks, just real news and honest opinions you can rely on. The Hook, a Bayern Munich star, could be United's January solution. Picture this. Manchester United desperately need a defensive midfielder. The season is halfway done and the midfield still isn't working properly. Casemiro is aging. Manuel Ugarte hasn't settled. Kobbie Mainoo is injured and plays a different role anyway. The club has been linked with big names like Carlos Baleba from Brighton. But he costs over £100 million and won't move in January. Adam Wharton at Crystal Palace? Same story. Too expensive and his club won't sell mid-season. Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest? Again, not realistic for January. So what do Manchester United do? They can't wait until summer because they need help right now. The answer might surprise you. Leon Goretzka from Bayern Munich has emerged as a potential January target. Yes, that Leon Goretzka. The German international midfielder who has won everything with Bayern. A player with Champions League experience. Someone who knows what it takes to win at the highest level. And he might be available on a short-term deal. So who is Leon Goretzka? Why would Bayern let him leave? Does he fit what Ruben Amorim needs? And could this deal actually happen in January? Let's break down everything you need to know about this developing story. Understanding Manchester United's midfield problem. Before we talk about Goretzka specifically, we need to understand why Manchester United are even looking for a defensive midfielder in January. What's the problem they're trying to solve? The issue is pretty clear if you've been watching United this season. The midfield isn't working. United get overrun in the middle of the park too often. They can't control games consistently. The defensive stability isn't there. Something needs to change. Let's look at the players United currently have in defensive midfield positions and why each one isn't quite the answer. Casemiro is the most obvious example. When he first joined Manchester United, he was brilliant. He brought experience, quality, and that winning mentality from Real Madrid. He helped United look much more solid defensively. The team functioned better with him protecting the back line. But here's the reality. Casemiro is now 32 years old. He's had a bit of a resurgence recently with some good performances. But the cold truth is he's not the high-intensity player he once was. His legs have gone. He can't cover ground like he used to. In the modern Premier League where the pace is relentless, that's a huge problem. Casemiro can still have good games, especially against teams that sit back and don't press aggressively. But in high-intensity matches against top teams, he struggles. He gets caught out of position. He can't recover when beaten. The game has become too fast for him at this stage of his career. Then there's Manuel Ugarte. United signed him last summer with high hopes. He had impressed at Paris Saint-Germain. He looked like exactly the kind of energetic defensive midfielder United needed. But it hasn't worked out so far. Ugarte did have a good performance against Newcastle recently. He showed some of the qualities that made United sign him. But one good game doesn't solve everything. For most of his time at United, he's flattered to deceive. He hasn't been bad exactly, but he hasn't been the answer either. The really concerning part is that reports suggest Ineos are already prepared to cut Ugarte loose. That's remarkable when you consider he only joined a few months ago. If the people running United are already willing to move him on, clearly they don't see him as the long-term solution. What about Kobbie Mainoo? He's a fantastic young talent who's broken into the first team. United fans are rightly excited about him. He has real quality and could become a top midfielder. But here's the thing. Ruben Amorim doesn't see Mainoo as a defensive midfielder. Mainoo is more of a box-to-box player or even an attacking midfielder. He's creative, good on the ball, and can make things happen going forward. That's not the same as being a defensive shield. On top of that, Mainoo is currently injured. So even if Amorim wanted to use him deeper, he can't right now. United need someone who can play immediately, not wait for injuries to heal. This is why United are in the market for a defensive midfielder. None of their current options fully solve the problem. Casemiro is aging. Ugarte hasn't convinced. Mainoo plays a different role and is injured anyway. The question becomes, who can United realistically sign? And that's where things get complicated. Why United's primary targets won't move in January. Manchester United have identified their dream targets for the defensive midfield position. The problem is none of them are realistic options for January. Let's talk about why. Carlos Baleba from Brighton is at the top of United's list. He's a 21-year-old powerhouse midfielder who's been excellent for Brighton this season. He has everything United need: physical strength, athleticism, energy, good technique, defensive ability. He's already proven in the Premier League, so there's no adaptation risk. Brighton value Baleba at around £110 million. That's an absolutely massive price tag. And even if United were willing to pay it, Brighton won't sell in January. They're competing for European places this season. Selling their best midfielder mid-season would destroy their campaign. Why would they do that? Brighton have shown repeatedly that they only sell players when the time is right for them. They rejected a big offer from Inter Milan for Baleba last summer. They'll do the same with any January approaches. If United want Baleba, they'll have to wait until summer and pay the full asking price. Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace is another name on United's list. He's a 20-year-old English midfielder with exceptional passing ability. He's a deep-lying playmaker who can control games from the base of midfield. Palace rate him incredibly highly. Wharton would cost at least £60 to £70 million. Again, that's huge money. And again, Palace won't sell in January. They're fighting to stay clear of relegation trouble. Their best young player leaving mid-season would be a disaster. They demand ridiculous money to even consider it, probably more than his actual value. Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest is the third primary target. He's a 22-year-old Scottish midfielder who joined Forest from Newcastle last summer. He's energetic, hard-working, and has adapted well to Forest's system. Forest might be slightly more willing to sell than Brighton or Palace, but they'd still demand around £40 to £50 million. For a player who's only been at the club a few months, that's steep. And Forest are doing well this season. They don't need to sell anyone. The pattern is clear. United's top targets all play for clubs that are having good seasons and don't need or want to sell in January. These clubs aren't desperate for money. They can afford to wait until summer when they'll have more time to find replacements. This puts United in a difficult position. They need a defensive midfielder now. But the players they really want aren't available now. So what do? The case for a short-term solution. This is where the thinking shifts towards short-term deals. If United can't get their dream long-term signing in January, maybe they can get a good short-term option instead. A short-term deal means signing someone on loan or on a permanent deal, knowing they're just a stopgap solution. Someone who can help for 6 months or a year while United continue working on their real targets for the summer. There are several advantages to this approach. First, it solves the immediate problem. United get a body in that defensive midfield position who can do a job right now. The squad depth improves. Amorim has more options to work with. Second, it doesn't prevent United from still going for their primary targets in the summer. If they sign Goretzka on a short-term deal in January, they can still pursue Baleba or Wharton in the summer. The short-term signing doesn't commit them to anything long-term. Third, short-term signings are often cheaper. Clubs are more willing to loan players or sell them at reduced prices if it's clear they're not in the long-term plans anyway. This helps United manage their budget and financial fair play constraints. Fourth, there's less risk involved. If you sign someone on a 5-year contract and they don't work out, you're stuck with them. But if you sign someone for 6 months and they're not good enough, they move on at the end of the deal. No long-term commitment, no long-term problem. The downside is that short-term signings are rarely the ideal solution. You're settling for someone available rather than someone perfect. The player knows they're just temporary, which might affect their commitment. And you have to go through the whole recruitment process again in the summer anyway. But when your primary targets aren't available and you need help immediately, a short-term solution makes sense. This is the logic behind United considering players like Leon Goretzka. Who is Leon Goretzka? Now let's talk about Leon Goretzka himself. Who is he? What kind of player is he? And what has he achieved in his career? Leon Goretzka is a 29-year-old German midfielder who currently plays for Bayern Munich. He's been at Bayern since 2018, so he's been there for over 6 years now. Before Bayern, he played for Schalke in the Bundesliga, where he first made his name as a promising young midfielder. Goretzka has been a key player for Bayern during his time there. He's won multiple Bundesliga titles. He's won the Champions League in 2020 as part of Bayern's treble-winning team. He's won numerous domestic cups. This is a player who knows what winning looks like at the highest level. For the German national team, Goretzka has been a regular player for years. He has over 50 caps for Germany. He's played in World Cups and European Championships. He's experienced international football at the biggest tournaments. So what kind of midfielder is Goretzka? He's what people call a box-to-box midfielder. though he can also play in a more defensive role when needed. He covers a lot of ground during matches. He contributes defensively by winning tackles and intercepting passes. He also gets forward to support attacks and even score goals. Goretzka is physically very strong. If you've seen pictures of him, you'll notice he's incredibly muscular and powerful. He uses this strength to dominate physical battles in midfield. He's difficult to push off the ball. He can muscle opponents out of the way. In the Premier League's physical environment, this would be a huge asset. Technically, Goretzka is very good. He passes accurately. He's comfortable receiving the ball under pressure. He can play short passes to keep possession or longer passes to switch play. His technique is solid even if he's not the most creative or flashy midfielder. Defensively, Goretzka is capable and reliable. He reads the game well. He positions himself intelligently. He makes important tackles and interceptions. He's not a pure defensive midfielder like Casemiro or Rodri, but he can do the defensive work when required. Going forward, Goretzka has a decent goal-scoring record for a midfielder. He times his runs into the box well. He's good in the air and scores headers from set pieces. He has a powerful shot from distance. Over his career, he's scored plenty of important goals for Bayern and Germany. One thing to understand about Goretzka is that he's been dealing with injuries in recent years. He's missed significant periods with various injury problems. This has affected his playing time and possibly his overall level. At 29, he's not a young player anymore. He's in the latter part of his career. But even with injury issues, Goretzka remains a quality midfielder with vast experience. He's played in massive matches. He's won major trophies. He knows how to perform under pressure. These are valuable qualities that United currently lack in midfield. Why Bayern Munich might let him go? If Goretzka is such a good player with all this experience and success, why would Bayern Munich let him leave? This is an important question because it tells us about his current situation. The reality is that Goretzka isn't a guaranteed starter at Bayern anymore. The club has other midfielders they prefer. Joshua Kimmich plays regularly. Leon Goretzka finds himself on the bench more often than starting. For a player of his quality and at his stage of career, this is frustrating. Bayern Munich are also always looking to refresh their squad. They have young midfielders coming through who they want to give opportunities to. Keeping an aging player on high wages who isn't starting regularly doesn't make sense from their perspective. There's also the financial aspect. Goretzka is on substantial wages at Bayern. If they can move him on, even temporarily, it frees up budget to use elsewhere. Bayern are one of the biggest clubs in the world, but they still manage their finances carefully. From Goretzka's perspective, he might want to leave to get regular playing time. Sitting on the bench at Bayern isn't ideal for someone who still wants to play at a high level. A move to Manchester United would give him the chance to be a key player again. The timing is interesting too. Goretzka's contract situation may play a role. If his contract is running down, Bayern might prefer to loan him out or sell him rather than lose him for nothing later. This gives them some return on the player. Bayern have done deals like this before. They've loaned players to other clubs when those players aren't in their immediate plans. They're pragmatic about these situations. If everyone benefits from a move, they're willing to make it happen. For Manchester United, this creates an opportunity. Bayern might be willing to do a loan deal for Goretzka in January. Maybe with an option to buy permanently if it works out well. This would be a lower risk option than committing huge money upfront. The fact that Goretzka has emerged as a target suggests United have had conversations with Bayern or his representatives. These things don't just appear randomly. Someone is talking to someone about making this happen. Would Goretzka fit Ruben Amorim's system? Let's think about whether Leon Goretzka would actually fit what Ruben Amorim wants from his midfielders at Manchester United. Amorim uses a 3-4-3 formation most of the time. In this system, the two central midfielders are absolutely crucial. They need to be mobile, energetic, and capable of doing everything. They defend when needed but also contribute to attacks. They cover huge amounts of ground because there's only two of them in central midfield. Looking at Goretzka's attributes, several things suggest he could work in this system. His box-to-box style is exactly what Amorim needs. He's comfortable defending and attacking. He can cover ground across the pitch. He's experienced enough to understand tactical instructions quickly. Goretzka's physical strength would be a major asset. Amorim's system can be demanding physically. The midfielders need to compete in battles, win duels, and impose themselves. Goretzka's power would help United win those midfield battles they've been losing. His experience is another factor. Amorim is still relatively new at Manchester United. He needs players who understand how to win, who've been there before at the highest level. Goretzka has won the Champions League, multiple league titles, and played in huge matches. That experience is invaluable. The concern would be Goretzka's recent injury history and age. At 29, he's not young. If United are looking for a long-term solution, Goretzka isn't it. He might have 2 or 3 good years left, but not much more. And if he's injury-prone, can he handle the physical demands of the Premier League? However, if we're talking about a short-term solution just for the rest of this season and maybe next season, Goretzka makes more sense. He doesn't have to be the answer for the next 5 years. He just needs to be the answer for now while United work on their long-term plans. Another consideration is how Goretzka would fit with other United midfielders. If Kobbie Mainoo returns from injury, could they play together? Mainoo's more attacking style could complement Goretzka's all-round game. Having someone with Goretzka's experience alongside a young talent like Mainoo could help Mainoo's development. Bruno Fernandes plays further forward in Amorim's system, so Goretzka wouldn't be competing with him directly. They'd be in different areas of the pitch. Goretzka would sit deeper, providing the defensive stability that Bruno doesn't offer. The language and cultural adjustment shouldn't be a major issue. Goretzka has played at the highest level for years. He's been in professional environments where he's had to work with players and coaches from many countries. He speaks good English. He'd adapt quickly. Tactically, playing for Bayern under various coaches means Goretzka understands different systems. He's adaptable. He can follow instructions and adjust his game to what the manager needs. This tactical intelligence would help him fit into Amorim's plans. Overall, while Goretzka isn't the young, dynamic midfielder United might prefer long-term, he's a solid option for a short-term role. He brings qualities United currently lack and could make a real difference for the rest of this season. The other names, Ruben Neves and James Garner. The report also mentions 2 other potential short-term options for Manchester United. Let's talk about Ruben Neves and James Garner because they give us a complete picture of what United might do. Ruben Neves is a Portuguese midfielder who used to play for Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Premier League. He was excellent at Wolves for many years. United fans will remember him scoring spectacular long-range goals against them. He was one of the best midfielders outside the traditional top 6 clubs. Neves left Wolves in 2023 to join Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. He's been playing in the Saudi Pro League for the past year and a half. Now there are suggestions he might be open to returning to European football. From United's perspective, Neves would be a great signing. He knows the Premier League already. He's technically excellent. His passing range is superb. He can control matches from deep positions. And he wouldn't cost enormous money or require long adaptation time. The question is whether Neves would be willing to leave Saudi Arabia so soon after joining. The money in Saudi football is incredible. He's earning far more there than he would at Manchester United. Would he take a pay cut to return to England? There's also the question of whether Neves is still at Premier League level after time in Saudi Arabia. The standard there isn't as high as in Europe. Has his game declined? Would he need time to readjust to the pace and intensity? If these concerns could be addressed, Neves would be an interesting option. Not a long-term solution at 27 years old, but someone who could help for a couple of seasons while United build toward their ideal squad. James Garner is a different type of target. He's only 23 years old and came through Manchester United's academy. United fans know him well because he was at the club until recently. He left to join Everton in 2023 after it became clear he wasn't going to break into United's first team regularly. At Everton, Garner has been a solid Premier League midfielder. He's not spectacular but he's reliable. He works hard, passes well, and understands the defensive side of the game. He's exactly the kind of player who does important things without getting headlines. For United, re-signing Garner would be a low-risk move. They know exactly what he offers. There's no adaptation period needed. He knows the club, the city, the expectations. And Everton might be willing to sell at a reasonable price if they need funds. The concern is whether Garner is actually good enough for Manchester United's ambitions. He's a good Premier League midfielder for a mid-table club. But is he the level required to help United challenge for Champions League places and trophies? Probably not as a first choice. But as a squad option, someone who can play when needed and do a decent job, Garner makes sense. And at 23, he still has room to develop further. Maybe working with better players and a top coach brings out qualities United didn't see when he was younger. Both Neves and Garner represent the kind of realistic, pragmatic options United are considering for January. Not glamorous superstar signings, but sensible additions who could help the squad. Comparing all the options. Now we have several potential midfield targets for Manchester United in January. Let's compare them and think about which makes most sense. Leon Goretzka brings vast experience, physical power, and proven quality at the highest level. He's won major trophies. He's played huge matches. He knows what it takes to succeed. The downsides are his age, injury history, and the fact he's not the long-term solution. Ruben Neves offers Premier League experience, exceptional passing ability, and tactical intelligence. He could control matches from deep positions. The concerns are his time in Saudi Arabia potentially affecting his level, and whether he'd accept lower wages to return. James Garner provides familiarity with the club, reliability, and youth on his side at 23. He wouldn't need adaptation time. But there are doubts about whether he's actually good enough for United's ambitions. Carlos Baleba would be the dream signing. Young, powerful, already proving himself in the Premier League. But he costs over £100 million and won't move in January. He's a summer target, not a January solution. If we're thinking purely about January options, Goretzka seems like the strongest candidate. His experience and quality are exactly what United need right now. Even if it's only a short-term fix, he could make a real difference for the rest of the season. The key is that any January signing needs to be affordable and realistic. United can't spend £70 or £80 million in January. They need deals that make financial sense while still improving the squad. A loan move for Goretzka with an option to buy would be ideal. Low risk, immediate help, and flexibility to assess whether a permanent move makes sense. This is the kind of smart business United should be doing. What Ruben Amorim actually needs. Let's step back and think about what Ruben Amorim is actually looking for in a defensive midfielder. Understanding his requirements helps us evaluate all these potential targets. Amorim has been clear that he wants high-intensity players. The modern game is played at incredible pace, especially in the Premier League. Players need to be able to run hard for 90 minutes, press opponents, and recover quickly when possession is lost. This is why someone like Casemiro, despite his quality and recent good form, isn't the long-term answer. He can't maintain high intensity for full matches anymore. His legs have gone. In the biggest games against the best opponents, he gets exposed. Amorim also needs midfielders who are comfortable on the ball. United want to play out from the back, control possession, and build attacks patiently. The defensive midfielder needs to be able to receive the ball under pressure and make good decisions with it. Defensive ability is obviously crucial. The player needs to read the game well, position themselves intelligently, win tackles cleanly, and intercept passes. This is the foundation of what a defensive midfielder does. Get this wrong and nothing else matters. But Amorim also wants contribution to attacks. In his 3-4-3 system, the midfielders need to support the forward players. They can't just sit deep and defend. They need to carry the ball forward, make runs into the box when appropriate, and add numbers to attacks. Leadership and mentality matter too. United have been mentally weak at times this season. They've collapsed in matches after going behind. They've struggled when facing adversity. A midfielder with strong character and winning mentality could make a huge difference to the team psychology. Looking at these requirements, Goretzka ticks most of the boxes. He's experienced and strong mentally. He's good on the ball technically. He can defend and attack. The only question mark is the intensity aspect given his age and recent injuries. Baleba would tick all the boxes perfectly, which is why he's United's primary long-term target. But since he's not available in January, Goretzka represents the best realistic alternative. What Amorim definitely doesn't want is another player like Ugarte who looked good at another club but can't translate that to Manchester United. He needs someone proven who he can rely on immediately. The January transfer window reality. We need to talk about what January transfer windows are actually like because they're very different from summer windows. Understanding this helps set realistic expectations. January is difficult for buying clubs. Most teams are mid-season competing for something. League positions, cup runs, avoiding relegation. They don't want to sell their best players because it could ruin their entire season. This means the players available in January tend to be limited. You get players who aren't playing regularly at their current clubs. You get older players who might be moved on. You get players on loan deals because permanent transfers are harder to negotiate. The prices in January are also inflated. Clubs know that buying teams are often desperate. If you need a player urgently, they can charge extra. This is why fees in January are often higher than the same player would cost in summer. For Manchester United specifically, January 2026 is about addressing urgent needs without spending crazy money. They've already invested heavily in recent windows. Financial fair play limits what they can spend. They need to be smart and strategic. This is why short-term solutions make sense. A 6-month loan for Goretzka doesn't commit huge resources. It solves the immediate problem without preventing bigger moves in summer. It's pragmatic rather than perfect. United also need to be careful about panic buying. They've made this mistake before, signing players in January who don't work out just because they felt pressure to do something. The worst thing would be spending big money on someone who doesn't fit just because they're available. The ideal January for United is 1 or 2 smart additions that genuinely improve the squad without breaking the bank. Goretzka could be that kind of addition if the deal is structured sensibly. How this fits United's bigger rebuild. Any January signing needs to be understood as part of Manchester United's broader rebuild under Ruben Amorim and the new Ineos leadership. Amorim inherited a squad that needs significant work. Previous managers built the team in different ways with different philosophies. Some players fit what Amorim wants. Others don't. Reshaping everything takes time and multiple transfer windows. The January transfer window is just one piece of a multi-year project. It's not about fixing everything immediately. It's about making incremental improvements while planning for bigger changes later. A short-term signing like Goretzka fits this approach. He helps for now without committing resources that prevent bigger moves later. United can still pursue Belieber or Wharton in the summer while having Goretzka provide experience and stability in the meantime. This is more intelligent squad building than United have shown in recent years. Instead of panic buying expensive players who don't fit, they're thinking strategically about short-term needs versus long-term goals. Ineos are trying to bring a more professional, data-driven approach to running Manchester United. They want smarter recruitment, better contract management, and more efficient use of resources. Every signing should fit into a clear plan. If the plan is to sign an elite young defensive midfielder in summer 2026, then a January loan move for Goretzka makes perfect sense. It doesn't contradict the long-term strategy. It actually enables it by providing stability while the summer deal is arranged. This patient, strategic thinking is what United have lacked. Too often they've reacted to immediate problems without considering long-term consequences. The new approach seems more thoughtful. What United fans should expect. If you're a Manchester United fan, what should you realistically expect from the January transfer window? First, don't expect massive spending or multiple big-name signings. January is about smart additions, not transformation. United will probably sign 1 or 2 players maximum, and they'll be sensible rather than spectacular. Second, understand that any January signing is likely a short-term solution rather than the permanent answer. Whether it's Goretzka, Neves, Garner, or someone else, they're helping for now while United continue working on their real targets for summer. Third, be patient with new signings. Even experienced players need time to adapt to a new club, new teammates, and a new manager system. Don't expect immediate perfection. Give them a few weeks to settle in. Fourth, recognize that January signings might not even happen. If United can't find the right deals at the right prices, they might wait until summer. This would be frustrating, but it's better than wasting money on the wrong players. Fifth, keep perspective on what January transfers can actually achieve. A good signing helps but doesn't magically fix everything. United still have underlying issues that take time to address. One midfielder doesn't suddenly make them title contenders. The realistic expectation is that United sign someone like Goretzka on a reasonable deal that makes sense financially and tactically. This improves squad depth, gives Amorim more options, and helps for the rest of the season without preventing bigger moves later. If that happens, consider it a successful January. Not exciting or glamorous, but sensible and helpful. That's what United need right now. The role of Ineos in transfer decisions. It's worth discussing how Ineos, the new minority owners led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, are influencing Manchester United's transfer strategy. Ineos took control of football operations at United with the promise of running things more professionally. They appointed new people to key positions. They're implementing new processes and systems. They want to bring the kind of efficiency they've had in other businesses to football. In terms of transfers, Ineos seem to be taking a more data-driven, strategic approach. They're building proper recruitment infrastructure. They're doing thorough analysis before making decisions. They're thinking long-term rather than just reacting to immediate problems. This is why you're seeing United linked with specific types of players. Young, athletic, technically good players who fit modern football. Not expensive superstars who don't fit the system. Not short-term fixes who'll need replacing in 2 years. The consideration of someone like Goretzka shows this thinking. He's not a panic buy. He's a calculated short-term solution that doesn't prevent long-term planning. Ineos are comfortable making these kinds of pragmatic decisions. There's also more financial discipline under Ineos. They're not going to overspend just because fans want big signings. They're setting budgets and sticking to them. They're walking away from deals that don't make sense financially. This approach might frustrate some fans who want to see United spending huge money on exciting players. But it's probably healthier long-term. Building sustainable success requires smart financial management, not just throwing money around. The test for Ineos comes in whether they can balance financial discipline with sporting ambition. United need to invest to compete with Manchester City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. But that investment needs to be smart. Ineos seem to understand this balance. If Goretzka or another sensible January signing happens, it would show Ineos are willing to act when needed while staying disciplined about costs. That's the kind of leadership United need. Learning from past January windows. Manchester United have a mixed history with January transfers. Looking at past windows teaches us what to expect and what to avoid. Some January signings have worked well. Bruno Fernandes joined in January 2020 and immediately became United's best player. Nemanja Vidic and Patrice Evra arrived in January 2006 and became legends. January can bring success. But United have also made mistakes in January. They've paid over the odds for players who didn't work out. They've made panic signings that solved nothing. They've brought in players who clearly didn't fit just because they felt pressure to do something. The lesson is that January signings work when they're well planned and thoughtful. Bruno Fernandes wasn't a panic buy. United had been tracking him for months. They knew exactly what they were getting. The timing just happened to be January. The mistakes happen when clubs react desperately without proper planning. When they sign someone just to appease fans or because they're panicking about results. These signings rarely work out. For United in January 2026, the key is approaching it strategically. If Goretzka is genuinely someone they've identified as fitting their needs, and the deal makes financial sense, then go ahead. But don't just sign someone because it's January and fans want activity. The fact that United are considering experienced, proven players rather than young unknown prospects suggests they've learned from past mistakes. Goretzka isn't a gamble. He's a known quantity who can help immediately. This measured approach is encouraging. It shows United are thinking clearly rather than acting emotionally. That's essential for successful January business. Conclusion: a sensible solution to an urgent problem. After everything we've discussed, what's the bottom line on Manchester United's January midfield plans? The situation is clear. United need a defensive midfielder. Their current options aren't working well enough. Casemiro is aging. Ugarte hasn't convinced. Mainu isn't seen as that type of player and is injured anyway. The ideal long-term targets like Belieber, Wharton, and Anderson aren't realistic for January. They're too expensive and their clubs won't sell mid-season. United will continue pursuing them for summer but need a different approach for January. This is where short-term solutions make sense. Leon Goretzka emerging as a target represents smart, pragmatic thinking. He brings exactly what United need right now. Experience, physical power, tactical intelligence, and proven quality at the highest level. Is Goretzka perfect? No. He's 29 years old with some injury concerns. He's not the young, dynamic midfielder United ideally want long-term. But he's a very good option for helping immediately while United work on their bigger plans. If United can get Goretzka on a loan with option to buy, it would be excellent business. Low financial commitment, immediate improvement to the squad, and flexibility for the future. This is the kind of deal Ineos should be doing. The alternative options of Neves or Garner also make sense as potential short-term additions. All three represent sensible, affordable ways to address an urgent need without preventing bigger moves later. For United fans, January probably won't bring the excitement of a £100 million superstar signing. But it might bring something more valuable. A smart addition that actually helps the team while showing United are finally making better decisions. Thank you and stay connected with us. Thanks so much for reading this detailed breakdown of Manchester United's January midfield plans. Understanding these situations properly requires going beyond just headlines and actually analyzing what's happening and why. This is what we do at United Daily Updates. We give you honest, in-depth coverage that helps you really understand your club. Not just rumors and clickbait, but actual analysis that makes sense. Thank you for watching and subscribing.